Let's put that to Steve Reid, Shadow Secretary of State for the Environment, Food and Rural Affairs. Good to see you. Thanks for joining us on the programme. Would Labour be content with a postal service every other day, like they do in some places in Europe?
No, I think it's very worrying. There's a universal service obligation. Wherever you live in this country, you should get a regular postal service. I think that's still an important part of the infrastructure of our country, and it's very worrying to hear these proposals.
The Culture Secretary on the programme earlier said that she thinks the BBC is biased. Do you?
Well, I think strengthening governance of the BBC and oversight seems to me uncontroversial. It's important that the country's major public service broadcaster is impartial, and the proposals that have come forward, I think, I don't think that they would be particularly controversial, no.
Do you think the BBC is impartial?
Broadly, myself, I don't think it's particularly biased, not more than other broadcasters would be, but it's under...
Whoa, are you suggesting that we're biased?
Of course not.
Good, just checking.
Never your show, never Sky, of course.
Yes.
But, it's in a different category, isn't it? Because it's funded by taxpayers' money. So I think strengthening oversight of the BBC to make sure that everybody watching it has good reassurance that it will remain impartial is very important for the BBC being able to continue with public consent doing the good job that I think it does.
Do you think some channels are biased? News channels?
Well, channels are going to have their own perspectives on the news, and that's what happens in a free society. So I don't have a problem with that. The difference with the BBC is it's funded by people who pay the licence, and they deserve to have it impartial. It's not privately owned, and that makes it very different to other broadcasters.
Yeah, although we're all governed by Ofcom, apart from the BBC,
That's right.
Although they may well be going forward. You want to talk to me about rubbish, sewage today?
Sewage, that's...
I was thinking of other words I could use at breakfast time.
Yeah, you have to be careful at this time of day when people are eating their breakfast.
Yeah.
But, I mean, people will be aware of the problem. We've got the highest levels of recorded illegal discharges of sewage into our waterways, our rivers, our lakes and our seas. But we had some researchers looking at how much water bosses had paid themselves in bonuses in recent years. And since the general election in 2019, they've paid themselves £25 million in bonuses and incentives while overseeing not just failure, but illegal activity on the scale that your viewers will be aware of. It's not right that should continue. Now, Labour wants to put the water industry under special measures so we can clear it up, but a key plank of that will be giving the regulator the power they need to ban water bosses paying themselves huge bonuses in this way while they're overseeing illegal failure on this level.
Much of our water industry is owned by foreign ownership. Should it be brought back into public control?
Regulation, for me, is the right way forward, strengthening regulation, because you can do it faster. If we were to look at nationalising the water industry, it could cost up to £90 billion to buy out the current owners, and where on earth are we going to find the money to do that? But it could also take years to unravel the current model of ownership, and during that time...
So you would do it in a perfect world, but you just can't do it?
No. I mean, I believe that strengthening the powers of the regulator will clean up the water industry. There's no need to... I don't think ownership is the issue. I think it's regulation. If the regulator had more power to stop the water bosses paying themselves tens of millions of pounds in bonuses, that money could instead be spent on fixing the broken infrastructure, which is the reason that we're seeing increasing levels of toxic sewage pumped into our rivers, causing all the damage they do to wildlife habitats, to tourism. People are worried now to take their kids down to the beach for a paddle in case their kids get sick. That is not how this country should be.
Talk to me about the situation that we've highlighted again via our Jason Farrell in Greater Manchester. A whistleblower has stepped back from her job looking after kids at Greater Manchester Police, trying to look after kids, because she doesn't think there's enough money to be able to do her job properly, and she thinks that there is a paedophile ring still operating in Greater Manchester.
Well, I think these claims have to be taken incredibly seriously, because there's nothing more important we do as a society than protect vulnerable children from the monsters that want to abuse them in this way. Now, I hear what's being said, and I've heard it myself. I have members of my family who work in child protection, and they say similar things. Now, what Labour is proposing is that we need to increase the number of police. You can pay for 13,000 additional police and PCSOs by tying up procurement across the different forces, so we can free up the money that would be saved to pay for extra officers. If you've got that, you make the system work far better. But I think it goes beyond that. I used to leader council myself, we had to clear up the mess from historic child abuse. Getting different parts of the public sector to work more closely together and share data is another key aspect of protecting children and keeping them safe.
Just while I've got you, Scotland's First Minister, Humza Yousaf, has invited Keir Starmer to meet and establish a working relationship ahead of the next general election. Interested?
Well, I'm sure Keir Starmer will be prepared to speak to other people in politics, but he's specifically ruled out any deal with the SNP. Labour believes we can win a majority of seats across the UK, including in Scotland, and we'll be working towards a majority at the next general election.
What if you need their help?
Well, Keir's ruled out working with the SNP. We're going for a majority. If we weren't in a majority, then the Labour Party aims to govern the entire United Kingdom. You would not invite into that a party that wants to break our country apart.
Good to talk to you. Thanks very much indeed for taking the time.